Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei was only man in this world part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Nefarious doctor for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. I'm telling you. I'm fine, mom. A voice said on the cyber train as the vehicle approached a massive building on an island. The person was on the phone talking to their parents, who were concerned and supporting him as the train continued to go about underwater and headed toward their destination. I know Issei, but it's not every day a mother hears about how her son started and went through some training to fly a normal and is going to the academy. I'm just worried you'll get hurt, all. Issei's mother said she was worried for her son since she didn't know if it was something she did, but she could imagine the pain that her son would have to go through if he one day went to war and almost got killed. Mom. It's a school, not a military academy. I promise you I'll be fine. We're getting pretty close to the school even as we speak. Issei said calmly while internally squealing in excitement as he couldn't help but be surprised when he got a package and was told he'd go to the academy. Home to where Japan's greatest warriors were made, and now he could train at their school and meet some of his heroes to get their autographs. And besides, I'll get my own after the tour. I'll also chat with you and dad when I'm free after my first day. Issei then asked his mother goodbye, hung up the phone, and looked outside to see the school coming into a much better view. It's so beautiful, Issei said in excitement as he watched the school get closer and closer to his train. Alright. It's almost time. I do wonder who'll be greeting me at the school entrance. Issei asked himself as he watched the train heading toward the school's front. Issei decided to pass the time by pulling out a magazine on the best users worldwide. As Issei continued reading, he deadpanned at the sight of a familiar user. Chifayu Orimura and her are the Brunhild. Everywhere I go, I see this Valkyrie somewhere in every bloody magazine, sometimes she's even on the front page. I get that she's famous, but she's becoming overrated. Issei grumbled in annoyance. Issei Hiatus had a unique place in his heart for the strongest users in the world and respected them for their dedication to their work. Still, Chifayu Orimura wasn't even in his top 25 favorites. Mostly because he saw Chifayu as an overrated wannabe user who ditched the Mondo Grosso when she would have won the second time and didn't believe she won the first time, either that the matches were fixed because of her family situation. Issei flipped the pages more as he saw a silver-haired teenager about a year older than him. Issei smiled at the picture. Valerie, the silver demon of Germany. Man, she's such a badass. Issei said as he recalled seeing the silver demon in action as she destroyed her competition at the first Mondo Grosso before Chifayu only won by a technicality. If she's at my school, that would be a dream come true. Facing the silver demon and her personal as the white dragon. Issei said as he then heard a ding above his head. Final stop. Is academy. Please brace for landing as we make our way to the school. Issei said as he then got ready for the stop. He saw the academy station come up as the cyber train stopped and pulled to the bottom of the island. Welcome to the academy. Please grab your luggage as you exit the terminal and prepare for your first day of class. The speaker said as Issei grabbed his suitcase and rolled it out of the terminal before seeing the massive station he was in. Whoa. It feels like a dream, yet it's right before me. Issei said with a smile as he saw many being built or repaired in the area. Glad to see you're excited about your first day in the academy, just make sure your excitement doesn't interrupt your classes with me. A mature feminine voice spoke up, making Issei deadpan almost immediately. Oh right, how could I forget? She's a teacher in this academy. Issei thought with annoyance as he turned to see a beautiful woman with long black hair tied in a low ponytail and brown eyes, who wore a black businesswoman's suit with a white undershirt and a black tie. Chifayu Orimura, I wasn't expecting to meet you so soon. Or is it Orimura-sensei? Issei asked with a raised brow, making Chifayu nod. Orimura-sensei would be much preferable, Hiatus-kun, Chifayu said stiffly. Cute, but there's a need to call me kun. I'm just a soon-to-be student and you're my teacher, so don't try to act like a teacher when you aren't one. You're just doing this because of the deal you made with Germany. Isn't that right, false Valkyrie? Issei asked as Chifayu felt surprised by the comment from Issei before Brunhild spoke to him. I'm sorry, Hiatus-san. Shall we start the day with a tour or have you not had breakfast yet? Issei waved off Chifayu's kindness. No, but thank you. I ate on the train ride, so let's stick with the tour, Orimura-sensei. Issei said, causing Chifayu's eye to twitch lightly in annoyance. Why do I feel that today's first class will be a pain in my ass? Chifayu wondered to herself before nodding at Issei. Follow me, and we shall get the tour started. Chifayu then led Issei through the area they were in. Here is where you'll be able to make upgrades to your and where you'll also get fitted for your personal unit. You'll come here at the end of the school day to get fitted for it. If you have any issues or concerns, contact the head engineer. Nefarious said as Issei nodded in response while admiring the engineers at work and did a couple of modifications on the Is in the room. Man. It's hard to imagine that this place is a school for future Is users. Issei said as he felt that the military had a large part to play in building the school so they could work on his units while educating the next generation. Nefarious then took Issei to the training yard where physical education classes would take place as well as his training. Here in the training yard, you can test your reaction time and weapon training and get used to your unit's capabilities. You'll need permission to use an arena for any day. Issei nodded at Chifayu's words before an idea came to him. Say Orimura-sensei, maybe once I get better with my new Is, perhaps you and I could spare some time? Issei asked, surprising Chifayu a little. A spar? Is this boy asking to spar with me? Huh, he's got some brass balls on him, that's for sure. Chifayu thought before answering Issei's question. I will have to think about it, Hiatus-san. I haven't had anyone wanting to spar with me for quite some time. And while I may be a little rusty, no, I won't go easy on you should I accept this little spar. Chifayu said before returning her focus to the task at hand. Now then, let us continue with the tour. Issei nodded as he followed Brunhild and recalled that she had a little brother attending his middle school. Hey. I heard about your brother's kidnapping and why you went to Germany. You have my sympathy for wanting to save your brother, but I still doubt your skills with an Is. Issei said as he walked next to the Brunhild, making the Valkyrie raise a brow before she spoke. You doubt my skills? Chiufu asked Issei. More like I doubt you won your matches fairly and that your opponents let you win because of your family situation, Issei said as he pulled out his magazine and showed the many pictures of Chifayu in her Is. If there's one thing I've learned about Is units, people always overestimate their skills because of that armor, but that's all it is. Just a metal shell that keeps you safe. You're a Valkyrie in there but human, just like the rest without the Is. So don't expect me to be like the boys and girls of your fan club. I'm not impressed. Issei said as he put the magazine away, while Chifayu was somewhat surprised by what he said. As Issei and Chifayu continued walking, the Valkyrie finally spoke up again. You are right, Hiatus-san, my skills with an Is are not great. However, I'm sure you understand my skills are not that of a rookie, but an advanced class Is user. Chifayu asked, allowing Issei to nod before she continued. Good, I'm thrilled you don't overestimate me as most of my dumb fans do, Chifayu said dryly, eliciting a chuckle from Issei. Glad to know you aren't defending yourself against slander. Respect. Issei said as Chifayu led him through the cafeteria and to one of the dorm rooms. Here is your dorm. Since you're the only male Is user, you'll have room for 2 people, but I should warn you that you'll have to share with a female student due to the odd number of females in the school. I hope you don't mind. Chifayu said as Issei nodded in reply. I understand, and granted, I may be tempted to peek, but I won't do so without consent. Plus, I'm not the type to have sex on the first date. Issei said while Chifayu let a slight smirk appear on her face. We'll see about that. Now come on. We're going to my office to speak about your arrangement. After another few minutes of walking, Issei and Chifayu arrived at her office before she opened the door. After you, Hiatus-san. Chifayu said, making Issei nod before entering her office. Much obliged, Orimura-sensei, Issei said, getting a nod from Chifayu as she entered her office before closing the door behind her. I may be an Is pilot, but I still have my manners, unlike most women, Chifayu said before she went to sit at her desk, while Issei was already sitting in the chair in front of the said desk. The tension was evident as Chifayu sighed before speaking to him. As you know, you are the first male to pilot an Is, so to ensure that the government doesn't poke you like a lab rat to see what makes you tick, you'll be a student here at the Is Academy. I am a teacher, but I'm also the principal of this school, so know that I don't show favoritism to anyone. You can be the president of Japan, and I'd still treat you the same at my school, so know this won't be like your regular high school. Knowing that you still want to attend the Is Academy. I understand you are worried about your parents, but they are fine and will respect your wishes. Chifayu said as Issei nodded in reply and responded. I'd still like to attend the Is Academy, Issei said as Chifayu smiled. Good. Don't let me down, Hiatus. Now best you head to your first period. It's the first day, so you'll get out of classes around noon, and after classes, you report to the maintenance department and get fitted for your personal Is. Is that clear? Issei smirked at Chifayu. Yes, ma'am, Issei replied, making Chifayu roll her eyes and smirk back at the young man. Okay, none of that ma'am crap. Orimura-sensei will do just fine, Hiatus. Chifayu said. I noticed she stopped calling me San earlier, I guess it wasn't a slip-up since she just called me Hiatus again. I must have garnered some respect for seeing right through her. Issei thought. Understood, Orimura-sensei, Issei said as he was let go by Chifuyu and headed to his classroom before turning and feeling someone slam into him. Ow. The voice cried out as Issei fell onto the floor before looking up at the one who slammed into him. The person in question was a male with long, straight, spiky blonde hair tied into a low ponytail. He had purple eyes and wore the same male as academy uniform as Issei. The guy looked at Issei and blushed before helping him up. "Oh, I am so sorry. I was trying to get to my class and got lost," the boy said in a French accent as he helped Issei up. "It's okay. It's my first day, too, so I was a bit lost, but thanks to the map, it should be nearby." "What class are you in?" Issei asked as the boy replied. "Oh, I'm a first year. My name is Charles Dunois. Nice to meet you." Issei Hiatus, "And are you a guy? I thought I was the only one," Issei claimed. "Well, oh, look at that. Guess we're classmates too, Charles," Issei said, slinging an arm over Charles, making the boy's face turn a bright red before the two sat in the front row next to each other. "It appears me and Charles are the first ones in class. No doubt it's probably because the rest of the girls are doing their makeup to look good for Chifuyu," Issei thought with a roll of his eyes, which Charles noticed. "Is everything alright, Issei?" Charles asked his male friend. "Yeah, I'm okay, Charles. Just thinking about how much makeup the girls are putting on for Orimura-sensei, a bunch of simps is what I call them," Issei grumbled, getting a genuine laugh from Charles. "I take it you're not much of a fan of her, Issei?" Charles asked as Issei replied with a so-so motion with his hand. "Well, she's kind of overrated, but now that I met her face to face, I can tell she's at least human and not arrogant in her skills," Issei said before turning to Charles. "So, what brings you to Japan? Where are you from, Charles?" "Oh, I'm from France, and I was told to attend the school to learn more about Is and possibly work under the only other male Is user. Apologies for not informing you of my arrival, but my father can sometimes be difficult to deal with," Charles said as he chatted with Issei about their lives before the France representative asked the young Japanese man a serious question. "So, Issei, what kind of women do you like?" Issei raised a brow with a smirk. "Do you want an honest answer?" Issei asked, getting a nod from Charles. "Very well. I like women of any size, but I prefer them big. But besides liking women with a nice set of and a voluptuous body, I also like women with a nice and kind personality," Issei said as he paused momentarily before sighing and continuing. "I had a girlfriend once named Yuma Amano and thought she was a very nice and beautiful young woman. However, that was until I found out that Yuma was actually dared by her friends to date me, so I instantly broke up with her after we finished our second date." Charles Winston replied to the response until Issei waved it off. "It's fine. I'm over her. I hadn't dated anyone else for 2 years, so I poured myself into studying his units and learned all I could about them. I always wanted to know what flying an Is and taking to the stars would be like. It's such a shame that an incredible device meant for space exploration turned into a military weapon and a vehicle that made women worldwide power hungry or crazy. Like the rumors about that organization known as Phantom Task," Issei said as Charles nodded in reply before the brunette young man asked him. "So, what kind of girls do you like, Charles?" This made Charles blush as he gulped and looked at Issei nervously. "I kind of I'll look both ways," Charles said shyly, making Issei blink in surprise before he smirked. "Does that mean I'm your type of man, Charles?" Issei asked teasingly, making Charles blush furiously. I mean Charles stuttered over his words, making Issei burst out laughing. Hey. It's not funny." Charles whined as he pouted at Issei before turning away from him as he calmed down and patted the blonde Frenchman's back. "Come on. I was teasing Charles. And besides, I support the rainbow," Issei said, making Charles perk up immediately. "So if I did ask you out then would you date me?" Charles asked while stuttering before Issei pondered the question until he replied. "I probably would. You seem like a nice guy and I wouldn't be surprised if guys and girls wanted to date you," Issei said with a smile, making Charles blush once again as he covered his face with his hands at the reply, which made the blonde Frenchman's heartbeat loudly in his ears. Issei smiled warmly at Charles's reaction before ruffing the blonde's hair. "Oh, you don't need to be so flustered, Charles. Besides, I think it would be a good experience for me to date you. I've never dated a cute pretty boy before, so perhaps this experience will be a delight for the both of us," Issei said in an unconsciously charming tone of voice. Charles's face was turning redder and redder by the minute until Issei unintentionally leaned into the blonde's ear and whispered some words, making his heartbeat sound more like a drum. Issei soon separated from Charles as the doors were opened by a tall green-haired woman who wore glasses and was large. God damn. She might be bigger than Chifuyu and Natasha, Issei thought. "Oh, good morning Hiatus-san. It's nice to see you met Dunois-san here." He will be your roommate for the remainder of your time here. I hope you don't mind sharing your space with another boy. The woman said as she walked over to her desk before accidentally tripping over her feet and tumbling down to the floor with her in the air. Why does this keep happening to me? The woman whined to herself as she picked up her glasses and placed them back on her head to see the shocked expressions on Issei and Charles's faces. Are you okay, ma'am? That looked like it hurt. Indeed. Should we take you to the nurse's office? Issei and Charles asked as the teacher smiled in reply and shook her head. No. It's alright. It's not the first time this has happened, I'm just a bit of a klutz. She said while lightly hitting her head and sticking out her tongue cutely. Anyways, my name is Maya Yamada and I will be your homeroom teacher from this day forward. Please refer to me as Yamada-sensei, that's all I ask of you. Maya said with a big smile, making Issei blush a little. Okay, she's definitely on my to-date list. Issei thought without a doubt. Charles pouted at Issei's reaction to their teacher before smacking the back of his head. Ow. Issei yelled as he turned to see Charles pouting while looking away. What was that for? Oh, you know what you did. Playboy Hiatus. Charles said in response, while Issei looked offended by the nickname. Hey. I'm not a playboy, she just took me off guard. And have you seen her? She looks like a literal MILF, and her personality even gives her more points on the list of people wanting to date her. I would have asked her out if I weren't a student here. Issei said as Maya giggled at the idea before patting the young man's head. Thank you for the compliment, Hiatus-san, but I'm afraid that as long as you're my student, I'll have to turn down that invitation, Maya said as she sat behind her desk while her large one rested on the said wooden desk, showing off their firmness. Whoa. Issei thought in awe before feeling Charles smack the back of his head again, right before looking away with a pout. You can look at me, too, playboy, Charles said as he wanted to be looked at by Issei. Not that he would admit it. Issei smirked at Charles's words. Okay, Charles, would you also like to sit on my lap while I rub your head? Issei asked, making Charles fluster once again. What Charles yelped while imagining himself doing that until the doors were opened as other females began to pour in, and a few stood out to Issei. He saw a blonde-haired woman who looked like she was from Britain, a tall brown-haired girl who looked like she could pass off as his hot sister, and a girl wearing a Pikachu hoodie. Huh. Quite the dot, Issei said as he looked at the girl with the ponytail before asking her. Hey Ponytail. What's your name? Issei asked as Ponytail turned to him and pointed at herself, making the brunette young man nod. My name is Haoki. Haoki Shinanono. And you are? Haoki asked. Oh, Issei Hiatus. Say you wouldn't happen to know an Ichika Orimura and Tabane Shinanono, would you? Issei asked as he had heard rumors of the rabbit known as Tabane Shinanono having a younger sister who was her exact opposite. Haoki's eyes widened as she blinked a few times at Issei. Yeah. Ichika-kun is my childhood friend and Tabane Nihin is, regrettably, my older sister. Do you know them? Haoki asked, making Issei nod. Yup. Me and Ichika are middle school buddies and I've met Tabane once outside of school. I just bumped into her randomly on the street and she seemed willing to help me with my studies on the Issei explained with a light chuckle. Wait. You wouldn't happen to be Issei Hiatus, would you? The boy who said on his career list that he wanted to pilot and is to reach the stars and have a harem? Haoki asked as Issei held his left hand up and replied. I plead the fifth on the harem part, but yes, I did want to fly in as of my own, so I could know what it was like to soar into the stars and use them like they were meant to be used before. Anyway, Ichika and I are good pals, and you must have been that tsundere he told me about. Captain of the kendo team back in your family dojo and very scared with your wooden bakken. Issei said as Haoki felt touched that Ichika remembered her, even if they hadn't seen each other in a while, but then she recalled that Issei met her sister. You met my sister, and she didn't try anything with you? No experiments or anything like that? Haoki asked as she inspected his head and opened his mouth before using a light to inspect the inside of it. Issei chuckled before he stopped Haoki's actions. No, Tabane-chan did no such thing. She only invited me to her place once to review her notes on the Trust me when I say that your sister has been very helpful to me and I might have to ask her out for dinner the next time I see her as a way of saying thanks for the help. Issei said with a big smile. Haoki stopped as she looked at Issei's eyes before sighing. I apologize for my actions, but my sister tends to have questionable social skills. She only cares about our family, Ichika and Shifai. They're the only ones she would go to the ends of the world for and make sure they are safe. Once, she even chipped my travel bag when I entered the kendo championship with my team. I only found out about it when she called me and said I had a cute booty. Haoki said as she spoke with a bit of annoyance in her tone, while Issei stayed silent but nodded as Haoki held out a hand for him that he shook in response. Well, let's look forward to a good year. I only feel sorry for who's part of the first exhibition match of the year. Haoki said as Maya stood up and fumbled with a few note cards she had in her hands. Issei merely smiled at Haoki before the brunette woman quickly sat behind her new friend so Maya could begin the class. Alright, then, class. We'll begin with introductions and then explain what you'll be studying for your first year. Since all of you are new to the school, know that you'll have your chance to participate in the class battle royale, which will be in a month. So before the day ends, we'll choose a class president and vice president. Now, let's begin with introductions. Maya said as the class began to go through their names, and some were very memorable, such as the British girl and Pikachu girl. Charles was next as he stood up and smiled at them all before introducing himself. My name is Charles Dunois, and I am a male from France. I'm honored to meet all of you, and I hope we can get along very well in the future. Charles said with a smile that brightened up the room as the girls swooned over him, except a few, while Issei felt his heart skip a beat at the smile. Damn. That smile is more dangerous than any weapon I've ever read about. Issei said in his mind as Haoki went next. My name is Haoki Shinanono, and yes, I'm related to Tabane Shinanono, but if you want to be my friend or get to know me because of my sister, then forget it, Haoki said as she sat back down before Maya spoke to Issei. Excuse me, Hiatus-san. It's your turn. Issei nodded before he sighed and stood up, making everyone in the class look at him. My name is Issei Hiatus. And yes, before any of you ask, I am the boy who said he wanted to pilot an Issei to reach the stars, and I plead the fifth on the harem part. I was just really excited to pilot an Issei that my brain wrote down that last part on instinct. While my dreams are less than attractive, I genuinely hope to be friends with all of you. Issei said with a bow before sitting back down. Maya smiled at the introductions as she then proceeded with the orientation. Excellent. Now let's begin reviewing what you'll be learning this semester. Maya said as she then began to explain how each of them would be getting used to piloting an Issei, light combat, physical education, studying combat simulations, and Issei themselves. The orientation lasted for the first 2 periods until 10 AM as the lunch bell rang. Alright. Lunch ends at 11 AM, and I want you all to be here before the end of your first day. Enjoy your lunch. Maya said as she then took some papers to another classroom. Charles looked at Issei and asked. Would you like to have lunch with me, Issei? Charles said before pulling Issei close to him as the Frenchman whispered in his ear. And is the offer to sit on your lap still open? Issei smirked at Charles. Why yes, the offer is still available, Charles. And I'd love to have lunch with you. Issei said, making Charles blush lightly with a small smile. As Issei and Charles left the classroom, the blonde British woman watched Haoki run after the two men. The British blonde merely scowled softly once Haoki was gone from her view. Damn. And here I hope to ally with her to learn more about the Japanese woman who created the Issei. The British blonde said as Haoki followed Issei and Charles to the cafeteria, where the brunette male got some spicy curry, while Charles got some rice balls with meat in them. The two boys then headed to the rooftop as Haoki followed them closely while pulling out her bento box before briefly seeing Issei and Charles chat. Haoki blushed as Charles picked some rice off Issei's cheek and giggled at the brunette young man's reaction. And no way. Is this what a BL looks like? Should I step in and stop them? Does Issei-san swing that way? Haoki asked herself before she gasped internally as Charles sat on Issei's lap and smiled contently before wiggling his against the Japanese man's crotch. Is Charles-san grinding his own Issei-san's crotch? Why isn't Issei-san stopping him? Haoki yelled in her mind as she watched Issei pet Charles's head, making the blonde Frenchman relax more in his friend's lap until the Japanese woman decided to make herself known. Hi, Issei-san. Charles-san. I didn't know you guys liked coming to the rooftop too. Mind if we eat lunch together? Haoki asked as she pulled out a blanket and laid it on the rooftop before pulling Issei beside her after moving the now pouting Charles. Issei chuckled at what Haoki was doing, knowing she was probably thinking of something naughty when she arrived on the roof. I don't mind at all, Haoki-san. But next time, maybe you should ask what Charles and I were doing before deciding to move him off my lap. After all, I did ask Charles if he wanted to sit on my lap before class started. Issei said, shocking Haoki before he continued. Besides, we're the only guys in the Issei Academy. Us bros gotta stick together. Issei said with a slight grin, making Haoki blush profusely. What the fuck? Is this what guys call bros before hoes? Haoki exclaimed to herself. Charles was a bit red from Issei's words, but smiled and nodded in agreement with his male friend. As the trio ate their lunch together, Haoki eyed Charles as he wiped Issei's cheek when some more rice got stuck to his cheek before he whispered something to the Frenchman, which made him giggle as if he was told a funny joke before the brown-haired man left to use the bathroom. As Issei left, Haoki grabbed Charles by the collar of his shirt before she shook him back and forth. What the hell do you think you're doing? Are you trying to seduce Issei-san or something? Haoki yelled as she continued to shake Charles back and forth. While Haoki was interrogating Charles, Issei went down from the roof before going to Chifayu's office. I should ask Chifayu if I can have Charles be my roommate. I'd feel more comfortable having a guy bunker down with me instead of a girl. Issei thought before finally arriving in front of Chifayu's office again and knocking on the door. Come in. Issei did so as he walked into the room with Chifayu speaking to the same British blonde woman until the British woman smiled at Issei. Ah. Just the monkey I wanted to see. Britain said as she walked towards Issei and jabbed a finger onto his dot. Issei Haidu. I challenge you to a duel for the right of being class president. Issei gave the British woman a weird look before completely ignoring her. Horomura-sensei, I request the Charles Dunois room with me instead of a random female student. I may have only known Charles for 2 classes, but I already see him as a little brother and I don't want any female students to corrupt him. Issei said with a bow before turning back to the blonde woman with a blank stare. I don't know who you are, but you can take the class president title. The votes haven't been completely decided yet, so I'll tell Yamada-sensei to give the role to you, should I somehow win. This is mainly because I'd rather focus on my studies than become the president of a class filled with annoying fangirls. Issei said with irritation, making Chifayu chuckle while the British woman's jaw dropped. Hold it right there, monkey. The British woman yelled as she slammed her hands on the wall to pin Issei between her arms. I came to this academy to better understand the is, and I won't allow a monkey like you who thinks he's special just because of some genetic mutation. So I challenge you to a one-on-one exhibition match. And my name is Cecilia Alcott, representative of Great Britain. Cecilia shouted while this declaration took aback Issei before pondering the idea until he smiled. Nah. And nah. What do you mean nah? Issei began to become annoyed with Cecilia and gave her a scathing glare. Okay, I'm only going to say this once. No, I refuse your challenge to a one-on-one exhibition match because all I see is a whiny fucking brat who believes they get everything they want in life by bitching their mouths off. Furthermore, even if I did accept, I don't want either of us being treated as something lower than dirt. Issei nearly growled before turning back to Chifayu. I don't believe I've received your answer about Charles Dunois or Amura-sensei, Issei said, ignoring Cecilia again. Oh. Yes, Charles may be your roommate, but make sure there's no funny business, like sneaking alcohol into your dorm room. You may leave now, Haidu-san. Chifayu said, making Issei nod before he exited her office, leaving Cecilia's face red with rage before she barged out of the door and ran after the young man. At the same time, the British representative's reaction amused the Valkyrie before she sighed softly. So, for the first exhibition match of the year, have you decided who you wish to battle against, Valerie? Chifayu suddenly asked out of the blue, causing a silver-haired woman to slowly walk into her office, right before the said woman smiled a challenging grin at the Valkyrie. Oh yes. I know who I'm fighting for the first exhibition match, honored Valkyrie. I shall go and challenge Issei Haidu to an exhibition match in person. He'll be more than interested in fighting me, the Silver Demon. Valerie said before she walked out of the office and closed the door behind her, making Chifayu sigh as she placed a hand over her now shaking fist. Even after all this time, I'm still afraid of that damn demon, Chifayu muttered to herself. And how the fuck does she keep appearing out of nowhere like that? Chifayu asked herself angrily. Time soon began to fly throughout the day until Issei's final day of classes ended. However, a certain annoying blonde wasn't letting Issei leave until Haoki finally got sick of it. Enough of this. Just leave Issei-san alone, you annoying harpy. He has told you no so many times by this point, so just fucking drop it already. Haoki yelled, making everyone stop packing and look toward her and Cecilia, including Maya, who seemed unnerved by what was about to happen. Before Cecilia could say anything to Haoki, a seductive-sounding voice suddenly stopped the British blonde in her tracks. She's right, you know. You're acting like an annoying brat instead of a representative of your country. The voice said, making the students and Maya turn around and gasp upon seeing the infamous Silver Demon walk into their classroom. Valerie smiled at everyone's funny reactions before walking toward Issei and stopping a few feet away. Issei Haidu. I, Valerie Linaria, the Silver Demon, wish to fight you for the school's first exhibition match, one-on-one, no strings attached. If you accept my generous offer, we shall clash next Friday, thus giving you a week to prepare. So what do you say, Issei Haidu? Care to battle against a lovely celebrity? Valerie said as she held her hand, anticipating Issei accepting her offer. Issei looked at Valerie's offered hand and was unsure what to do until he finally decided and smiled at the Silver Demon before shaking her hand. I'd be honored to fight you, Valerie Linaria. I promise to give it all I got. Issei said confidently, making Valerie grin before she took a piece of paper and wrote something on it before handing it to the young man. Consider this a small gift before the fight, Issei, Valerie said with a wink before she left the classroom, leaving Issei to look at the piece of paper and gasp at its contents. I just got Valerie Linaria's signature. She rarely gives these out to anyone, Issei muttered in awe before his mind registered what he had just accepted. And I'm going to be fighting her next week, Issei said slowly before giving the biggest grin he could muster. Oh, hell yeah. After that shocking turn of events, Issei arrived at his dorm room after dinner before falling face first onto his bed and screaming excitedly into his pillow. Issei then lay there for 10 more minutes until the dorm room door was opened by Chifayu, who had Charles following her from behind. And here we are, this shall be your dorm room for the rest of the year, Dunois-san. And remember, 11 PM is the school's curfew, so make sure you also tell your roommate about it. From the looks of things, Hiatus-san just let out all his excitement from being challenged by Linaria-san into his pillow. Chifayu chuckled, making Charles's eyes widen as he saw Issei resting his face against his bed's pillow. Oh, thank you very much, Orimura-sensei, Charles said before Chifayu nodded and left him alone with Issei. As Chifayu closed the door behind her, Charles went over to his bed before he lay down and turned his head towards Issei. Issei, are you in need of a shower? Charles asked Issei before he smirked. Because you reek of sweat. Charles laughed as he pinched his nose. Issei chuckled in reply before he sat up with a groan. I know, but I'm just so excited. Next week, I'm fighting the Silver Demon, the #1 is pilot in my top 10. Oh shit, I have to get my eyes fitted for next week. Issei said as Charles sat on his bed and spoke to his friend. Then perhaps we can train over the weekend. I have a personal is to help you train for the battle next Friday. That is if you'd like for me to train you. Charles said as he then smiled at Issei. It would be just the two of us. Alone. In an arena. Training in our suits. Will that work for you, Issei? Charles asked as Issei chuckled but nodded in reply before changing the subject. Oh, Charles, do you want to join me in the shower to save some time? You can scrub my back and I'll scrub yours. That sounds good. Issei asked as Charles pondered the question for a moment before he nodded his head with a smile. Of course, Issei, just let me unpack my clothes first, Charles said, getting a slight grin from Issei. Sounds good, Charles. I'll turn on the shower so the water is nice and warm. Issei said before leaving Charles alone. Once Issei was in the bathroom, Charles sighed in relief before unzipping his bag and pulling out his clothes. Charles then swiftly put his clothes into his dresser drawers before blushing at the sight of his underwear. See, can I trust Issei with my secret? Charles thought before he shook his head and put away his undergarments in his underwear drawer. As Issei left Charles to put away his clothes, Issei turned on the shower before he began to undress himself. Issei removed his shirt and blazer, revealing his perfectly chiseled body and a nasty scar on his back. Issei then unbuttoned his dress pants after kicking off his shoes, showing off his nicely toned legs. As Issei took his socks off, he heard Charles call from the bedroom. Issei. Is the shower all warmed up yet? Issei swiftly took his boxers off before putting his hand into the shower, feeling the water was now lovely and warm. Yup. It's all warmed up now. Let me hop into the shower first, and then you can come and join me. Issei called back before he hopped into the warm shower. Issei began to soak his body in the warm water with a low groan, while feeling the scar on his back, as it reminded him of the day he discovered his gift and learned of the deadly consequences of piloting and is without training. Should I tell Charles about my scar? It's not an amazing story, but it had some good parts that made me into the man I am today. Issei thought before he heard the door open as Charles spoke to him. Mind if I come in, Issei? Charles asked in what sounded like a more feminine voice as the steam filled the air, making Issei raise a brow before he shook off his confusion. Yeah, you bet, Charles. Come on in. Issei said as Charles stepped into the shower. The brown-haired young man stiffened as he felt an incredibly soft hand touch and gently traced the scar on his back. Was it bad, Issei? Were you in pain when you were given this scar? Charles asked in what sounded like worry, making Issei sigh softly. I'll admit, I was in a lot of unbearable pain, but I got the scar when my obsession over the Is almost killed me. To me, this scar not only reminded me of my foolishness, but it also reminded me that I needed to train and become stronger if I was ever going to become an Is pilot. Issei explained to Charles. Why does Charles suddenly sound so feminine? And why are his hands so soft? They feel so nice. Issei thought. Issei, you're someone I've come to trust, even though we only met today. So I've decided to tell you and show you who I truly am. Charles said as he took Issei's left hand and placed it on his, only for the brunette to feel something big, round, and soft on his hand. Charles, are you a girl? Issei asked, beginning to feel a little nervous. Charles merely smiled and nodded at Issei's question. Yes. My real name is Charlotte Dunois. Issei's eyes widened in shock before he swiftly turned to face Charles, only to see a beautiful blonde-haired woman. Charles, no. Charlotte, I don't know what to say. Issei nearly mumbled, he was speechless. Charlotte was looking down as she feared that now her secret was out, Issei would report her and feel disgusted around her until Issei tilted her chin up so she could look him in the eyes. "Charlotte, why were you pretending to be a boy?" Issei asked as he was unsure what a reason was until Charlotte bit her bottom lip momentarily before sighing. I was sent here for you by my father," Charlotte said as he looked down and let tears fall from her cheek as she couldn't bring herself to look him in the eyes for abusing his trust. Issei sighed softly, he had a pretty good idea why Charlotte's father had sent her here. That fucking bastard. Forcing his daughter to do research on me for his greedy purposes. Well, I'll make sure that fucker doesn't hear from Charlotte anytime soon. Issei thought before he wiped away Charlotte's tears. "Charlotte, why are you crying?" Issei asked worriedly. His earlier thoughts about Charlotte's body had all but burned away when he saw her tears. I lied to you about who I am and why I'm here, so why aren't you mad at me?" Charlotte sobbed softly. Issei watched as Charlotte began to shed more tears before he wiped them away and pecked her forehead. "Why would I be mad at someone forced into a position by their father?" Issei said, widening Charlotte's eyes before she let out a harsh sob and pulled the young man into a tight hug. As Charlotte bawled her eyes out, Issei merely did nothing but hug her back and whisper sweet nothings into her ear. "I'm glad my mom taught me how to comfort a woman," Issei said to himself gratefully. After a while of crying, Charlotte finally managed to calm down with a peaceful smile as Issei gently washed her back. "Are you feeling better now, Charlotte? If not, we could cuddle tonight if that will help," Issei said softly, making Charlotte's smile widen. "I would like that, Issei," Charlotte said happily. "Thank you, Issei. Again, I'm sorry for lying to you, but my father thought that if he could understand your ability to use he wanted me to conceive your child. However, he wanted me to get closer to you. So he gave me special classes to act and play the role of a boy," Charlotte explained as she scrubbed Issei's back before gently touching his scar. "Issei, can I ask how you got this scar? I only want to ask to understand you as a friend." Issei paused for a moment before he sighed heavily. "It was around when I activated my first Issei started. Flashback. The 15-year-old Issei Hiatus was supposed to be taking his high school entrance exam, but was surprised when he saw a group of scientists testing in his unit for combat. Of course, being the otaku that Issei was, he wanted to get a closer look. So as Issei slowly made his way over to the he watched the scientists modify it. That is until Issei saw that something wasn't right with the There's something wrong with the core. That's why it isn't activating correctly. Issei thought to himself before crawling inside the hoping to help fix the issue. However, the moment Issei got inside the machine suddenly activated itself. "Oh shit," Issei thought nervously. Infinite Stratos activated. Sensing with pilot. A robotic voice suddenly spoke up. "Wait, what?" Issei freaked out as the activated on its own while he was still inside the said unit. As the simulation began, Issei suddenly felt his body and mind connect to the "Wait, is this a combat simulation? Oh shit," Issei said, feeling like he just opened Pandora's box. As Issei tried to navigate the through the simulation, which included lasers and other units trying to destroy the one he was in, he wondered how the scientists hadn't noticed him inside the broken unit. Suddenly, Issei noticed two large units approaching him from both sides. "Shit. This is going to hurt like hell," Issei thought before both his units attacked and slammed into him. That's when the caved in on Issei, causing him to scream in agony as multiple units immediately blew themselves up. Then flashback. After those two units smashed into the I was in, I thought I would die. But all I got was a large scar on my back. Only my doctor and parents knew about this since they were surprised to hear I could pilot in his unit. After that, my doctor told me I should try to understand this gift better. So being the nice man he was, I got in touch with an old friend who lived in America and she gave me tips on his piloting," Issei said as he blow-dried his hair before they both began putting on their pajamas. However, Charlotte blushed when she realized Issei's pajamas consisted of only his boxers. "Oh my gosh, I'm going to be sleeping next to Issei while he's shirtless," Charlotte thought without noticing the drool running down the side of her mouth. Charlotte. Are you okay? You're drooling," Issei asked, making Charlotte blush even more before swiftly wiping away her drool. "Yes. I'm excellent, Issei, but would you sleep in your boxers?" Charlotte asked, making Issei blush lightly. "Oh, do you want me to wear a shirt?" "No," Charlotte suddenly shouted, making Issei's eyes widen in shock. Charlotte realized what she had done before she looked away from Issei shyly. I mean you don't have to." Issei blinked for a few seconds before he chuckled at Charlotte. "Charlotte, if you wanted to admire my body while we cuddled, you could have just asked," Issei teased. It's not like that," Charlotte denied. Soon enough, Issei and Charlotte got into one of the beds together and the blonde Frenchwoman began to snuggle against her roommate's board. Oh yes. He's so warm. Charlotte internally cheered. She could feel Issei's muscles and fell for them hook, line, and sinker. On the other hand, Issei was enjoying Charlotte's feelings as they pressed against him. Thank you, God, for sending me this beautiful angel. Issei cheered internally as comical tears ran down his face. Good night, Issei, Charlotte said softly before falling asleep. Issei chuckled when he felt Charlotte's soft breathing on his before he pecked the top of her head. Good night, Charlotte, Issei whispered before he, too, was lulled to sleep by Morpheus. Scene. Oh, and let me know your thoughts on this story, whether it should live or die. Also, there are no DxD elements in this one, and Issei will be taking Ichika's place, but he'll have his arc during the summer and beach episode. And now, I wanted to announce that I'll be able to have some extra time to do more chapters in the summer, so I'll try to make sure that the chapters are good and try to do as many as I can before my life gets busy again. Also, after some voting on a separate account of mine, I've decided to do a Pokémon DxD. Next is a DxD Pokémon story with the power elements of Naruto and Avatar: The Last Airbender. An anonymous source asked Azazel to make a new world of Pokémon and for it to allow trainers and Pokémon to fight together. Azazel liked the idea and, after making it, could transform it into a place where magic existed that would allow trainers to use magic and fight alongside their Pokémon. Azazel would want Issei to play the game, but when Issei is about to start, Sona interrupts him and is unintentionally sucked into the game. Now, Issei and Sona wake up in a place where the legendary Arceus lives. Everyone's favorite pawn and king. Issei and Sona end up in a Pokémon game thanks to a new version of a Pokémon Azazel made and wanted Issei to test it out. That's why Azazel slightly changed the game, instead of just Pokémon battles. It's Pokémon and trainer battles. Trainers can use magic similar to the DxD magic and others from different anime. Some fight solely with magic to assist their partners, some trainers use weapons to battle, while their Pokémon supports them, and then we have a bit of both. Here's a sneak peek into it. And as always, I'm open to honest feedback, good or bad. Ow, my head. What just happened? Sona Citri asked herself as she looked up to see she was in a palace until she heard a voice call to her. Ah, you're awake. Thank goodness you weren't hurt. The voice said as Sona slowly sat up and saw Issei sitting on a pillow table while sipping tea with a woman who appeared to be a goddess with hair similar to a galaxy. Sona slowly stood up as Issei walked over to her and assisted her to the table before helping her get seated. Thank you, Hiatus, Sona said as Issei nodded in reply before the woman chuckled at this. It's so amusing seeing people interact with one another. Azazel was right. You two definitely would make a cute couple. The woman said as Issei and Sona blushed at the idea before denying it. And no, he's not exactly my type. And Sona isn't looking to date right now, so. The two stopped as the woman stopped them both and spoke to them with a calm but severe look in her eyes. I apologize, but I'll have to cut this short. My name is well known in your world, but you may be surprised to hear it. I am the god of all Pokémon worlds. Arceus. Arceus said as Issei was in shock while Sona adjusted her glasses before Arceus chuckled at their responses as she spoke to them. There's no reason to be concerned. I was looking forward to meeting at least Issei when he was testing the new world. Arceus said as she sipped her tea until Issei picked up on her wording and asked. What do you mean by testing the new world? Are you saying that the game wasn't a game? Issei asked as Arceus nodded in reply. You're correct. The worlds that I created are in your world's games. Except for those creepypasta ones. Except for the Hell Bell, which was made by my daughter Giratina. Arceus said as she sipped her tea some more. Wait, you said you were expecting Issei but not me. Does that mean that I wasn't supposed to be here? Sona asked as Arceus nodded in reply. Yes. Unfortunately, you were brought into the world I created when Issei set up his character. When Issei was setting up the character for his game, you were caught in it, which means you were unfortunately brought into the game as well. Arceus said as Sona was shocked, but before Issei asked the goddess a question. But why did Azazel ask me to test the game? And how do you know him? Azazel and I had wonderful chats over the years when he accidentally fell into my palace. His intellect intrigued me, so I talked about his world and vice versa. Eventually, I felt like creating another world with magic, so I asked Azazel to help me create it, and so we did. Humans could use magic in my world, and magic could help my Pokémon grow even stronger within it. However, I was a bit concerned about the power scale, so I asked Azazel if he could ask someone to test the world. And that's how I got suckered into this, Issei said with annoyance, as he could tell that something was fishy about Azazel when he asked him to help with an experiment. In his honest opinion, he should have known better. So what now? Can't you send us back home? Sona asked as Arceus sighed before looking at the Citri heiress. I would, but unfortunately, since you interfered with the portal bringing Issei here, you used your water magic and shattered the ports to send you back. I could try to send you back to your world, but there's a high possibility that you would end up in another world I made without a connection to your world. Fortunately, time works differently here than back in your world, so Azazel is working on bringing you two back. Arcia said as she sipped her tea again until Sona slammed her hands on the table. Well, what happens now? We just get stuck here forever? Arcia sighed at the devil heiress as she replied. No. I asked Azazel for someone to text a world and he said Issei volunteered. He can explore the new world and enjoy the adventures, but it's a shame that he would have all the fun and you stay here. Alone. With me. Arcia said as she looked at Sona while drinking her tea some more until Issei looked at Arceus and asked. What is the time difference here in your world? See? That's a good question to ask. And to answer said question, it's interesting. One day here is just an hour back in your world, meaning you could spend about a week here and still be back in time for dinner. Arcia said that Sona was surprised by this before pondering her options, such as how to kill Azazel. Then is it possible I could go with him? Sona asked as Arcia smiled in reply and nodded. Yes, but you'll need to learn how magic works. Because Sona would be able to use her magic easily, however, Issei has a problem. No sacred gear can be used in this world. Its power would tip the power scales too far. Okay, so how will I use magic? Issei asked as Arcia smiled and summoned a crystal of sorts. This crystal will allow you and Sona to have your magic types on your trainer ID. Place your hand on the crystal and pour magic into it so your magic can be analyzed and posted on your ID. Arcia said as both Sona and Issei did the process and as their new IDs printed out, Arcia smiled at the results. From this day forward, you two are trainers. Issei Haidu. Trainer capable of dragon, fire, wind, and dark magic as well as a sword user. Arcia said as Issei saw a sword in the form of Ascalon, but without the dragon-slaying properties and holy magic within it. And for you, Sona Citri. Your results show you are a trainer capable of water, ice, and dark magic. So now prepare to enter the Hone region. Arcia said as she snapped her fingers as Sona and Issei blacked out and were teleported out of the palace and into the new world. Arcia smiled as she prepared to watch the show. Take all the time you need, Azazel. This is much better than any drama show I've ever seen. Arcia said as she summoned a bag of popcorn and watched the fun begin. Issei. Wake up or you're going to be late. A voice called out as Issei woke up and saw that he wasn't in his room or the palace where Arceus was until he sat on his bed and looked at his attire. Issei was now wearing a uniform with a white shirt that hugged his upper body with a red cloak over his arms, making him seem a bit intimidating. His shoes were armored yet light and comfortable. He was amazed by his new clothes and the fact that he saw a copy of his mother and father downstairs in the kitchen acting normal. Holy shit. Azazel copied my parents here. Issei mumbled to himself as he spoke to his mother. Hi mom. How's your morning? The new Mickey turned to Issei and smiled at him before hugging him in her arms, and to his surprise, it felt natural. I'm doing well, Issei, and I'm so proud of you. My son is starting his first day as a trainer here in Hone. I'm so happy. I almost cried because I'll miss you. Mickey said in happiness as Goru smiled at his son before Mickey hugged Issei even tighter as Issei groaned at the affection from his mother. Mom. Please, it's embarrassing. Issei grumbled as he was used to his mother being affectionate with him until Mickey let him go. Okay. I'm sorry, but I can't help but be proud of you. Especially since you're going to become an amazing trainer. Mickey said as Goru walked over to Issei and smiled at him before placing a hand on his left shoulder. Remember this, Issei. This journey is meant to help you achieve your dreams and desires. Don't let others influence or mess with your dream. You are smart, strong, and one of the most loyal people I know, Issei, so don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise how to live your life. Issei couldn't help but be touched by this version of his father's words before hugging the two even more until he left the family and headed towards the lab where he knew that the game's professor would be until he saw Sona appear. She was definitely in a different attire. Don't look at me like that. I'm not exactly pleased by this outfit, but it's not like I had a choice. Sona said to Issei as he turned away, but his mind took a mental picture of Sona's attire, which reminded him of Nessa from Sword and Shield. Sorry, but I'm surprised by the outfit of choice you were given. I look like I'm a wandering nomad but with a sword. Issei said he still had the sword he was given in a sheath on his left side. Sona looked envious of Issei's clothes. Well, at least you don't look like a swimsuit model, Sona said as she didn't feel so confident from the amount of exposure the outfit gave her, especially with her belly being shown to the world. Hey, it looks perfect and suits your fighting style. You mean that? Sona asked as Issei nodded in reply. Of course. You should work it and show them that they can look but don't touch. Issei said that Sona liked that idea before doing a pose that made her look intimidating, but showed off the confidence she had earned through her years as an heiress. Issei gave her 2 thumbs up as he gave his honest opinion to her. "You're working it," Issei said as Sona smiled in reply before the door of the professor's lab opened up to reveal that it was a copy of Azazel, as he smiled at the two of them. "Ah. Issei. Sona. I wasn't expecting to see you two here for a few hours. Hold on just a moment." Azazel said as Issei and Sona witnessed a semi-normal version of Azazel as he stumbled to get his paperwork sorted. At the same time, they saw that he was still an incredible inventor in another world. "It's amazing that Azazel put himself in the game." "You think that's amazing? My sister was normal. I mean normal, as in not a siskin. She was a normal sister that supported me. It felt like I was in a dream." Sona said as she was still surprised that her sister's copy was nice to her, but not as obsessive as the real one. "Whoa. Same here for my parents. They still love me and support me as well. It made me happy but glad they weren't different from my parents back home." Issei said as Azazel finished some tedious paperwork and smiled at them. "Apologies for the wait, but I won't keep you two for long. Now it's time to tell you that I'm proud to present your first 3 Pokémon of your choosing." Azazel said as Issei and Sona were shocked by this information before Azazel explained. "Well, to better help trainers experience other regions, the regional professors and I agreed to share starter Pokémon and have all trainers have 1 starter from their home region and 2 starters from another region of their choosing. That way, you can learn more about the other regions," Azazel said as he gestured to the machine. "So, who shall you choose?" Charlotte slowly opened her eyes as she looked up at Issei sleeping and recalled what had happened last night. "Charlotte, why are you crying?" Issei asked worriedly. His earlier thoughts about Charlotte's body had all but burned away when he saw her tears. I lied to you about who I am and why I'm here, so why aren't you mad at me?" Charlotte sobbed softly. Issei watched as Charlotte began to shed more tears before he wiped them away and pecked her forehead. "Why would I be mad at someone forced into a position by their father?" Issei said, widening Charlotte's eyes before she let out a harsh sob and pulled the young man into a tight hug. As Charlotte bawled her eyes out, Issei merely did nothing but hug her back and whisper sweet nothings into her ear. "I'm glad my mom taught me how to comfort a woman," Issei said to himself gratefully. After a while of crying, Charlotte finally managed to calm down with a peaceful smile as Issei gently washed her back. "Are you feeling better now, Charlotte? If not, we could cuddle tonight if that will help," Issei said softly, making Charlotte's smile widen. "I would like that, Issei," Charlotte said happily. Charlotte blushed at Issei's sleeping face before looking at her wristwatch to see it was 4 in the morning. She tried to go back to sleep but struggled because of the last night before she put her ear to Issei's and listened to the sound of his beating heart. "It sounds so soothing, like a lullaby," Charlotte said as she smiled to herself while listening to the heartbeat of the man next to her until feeling Issei's arms wrap around her waist even tighter, which made the Frenchwoman blush at the sight of her roommate before smiling at him for what he had done for her. "What did I do to deserve a roommate like you, Issei?" Charlotte asked herself as she decided to give him a chase before snuggling into his once more, listening to the soothing sound of Issei's heart and enjoying the feel of her on her own. On the other hand, Issei was still asleep, but a small smile appeared as he was glad to have a wonderful person like Charlotte as his roommate. A small part of him wanted to tell Chifayu about Charlotte's real identity, but then again, if the school were to learn that Charlotte was a girl, then it'll cause a scandal that'll harm the school, so he decided to keep it to himself. It would be their little secret, which made the morning a bit awkward as he woke up an hour later. Issei grumbled as he looked down at Charlotte's sleeping face before wringing her forehead. He saw their position and how others would see this as a man holding their wife, which made him blush as he could also feel Charlotte's incredible bust before slowly leaving her arms and replacing him with a pillow. Issei then headed to the bathroom as he went to do his business before taking some workout clothes and putting them on. It was a simple red workout short-sleeved shirt and shorts with black running shoes. Ever since his training with Natasha to better understand his ability, the woman had drilled into Issei that exercise was a crucial factor in being his pilot. She made him wake up at 5 and go through a rigorous workout. Eventually, he left the room and a note for Charlotte should she wake up. "It's hard to imagine this place is far from the mainland," Issei said as he went out for his morning jog. It was a good warm-up that Natasha encouraged him to do, since it was an excellent way for his blood to get pumping before the actual workout began. Issei was grateful for Natasha teaching him all she knew, so he decided to keep his routine, which is why he kept doing his workout, even after his training with Natasha. It was a great experience that helped him get more muscle and strength training. He wasn't expecting anyone to be out at this time, since he figured the girls at the school weren't into morning workouts, until he saw a girl run towards him in a workout uniform as well. Hi Dusan, is that you? I didn't know you liked to jog in the morning," Kyoka Akawa, first year and in the same class as Issei, said Issei was surprised to see someone else out this early before he greeted her. Oh hey. You're Kyoka, right? Nice to see you again. What are you doing out here in the morning? Issei asked as Kyoka giggled in response. I should be asking you the same thing. I always go for a morning jog on the weekends since we don't have classes. Ah. That makes sense. Are you on the track team or any sports? Oh, I'm on the handball team. I love being able to watch sports and jog since it helps me stay fit and healthy. Are you jogging too? If you want some help, I can give you some pointers. Kyoka said before getting into a crouching position on the ground. She then looked at Issei with a challenging smirk. Or we could race. Issei was surprised by the girl's boldness before smiling at the idea of having a running partner. Alright, you got a deal, Kyoka. Just don't cry when you lose. Issei said as the girl laughed in response before they started to run across the field, unbeknownst to their spectator. Issei seems to be fitting in well. I'll have to ask Natasha about the training that she put him through. Perhaps he can help out during PE, Chifuyu said as she drank some of her morning coffee before seeing Issei pass Kyoka for a while until Kyoka sprinted to get ahead of him. It became a battle of wills as the two tried to get ahead. Reminds me of when I was in school. Chifuyu said as she had a nostalgic look on her face as she recalled memories of her simple life as a high school girl, her little brother, Tabane, and her sister, and not having to become an Issei pilot. I feel like an old lady reliving her childhood. Time flies when you're having fun or are busy with work. Chifuyu said as she looked at her reflection in her drink before going back to watching Issei and Kyoka race each other until they ended their race at the school's entrance, with Kyoka and Issei tying for first as they painted a bit from their race. What's wrong, Kyoka? A little worn out. Issei asked with a smirk as Kyoka chuckled a response. Why you wish, Issei? You're pretty tired yourself. Kyoka said as the two continued to catch their breath before they headed to the school gym and began a workout competition with push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and other activities for another hour. The two of them were tired as their muscles ached, but they were both stubborn as they pushed each other past their limits. Kyoka had more experience in speed and stamina, but Issei could power through with his strength and endurance, which is why the two were testing each other's limits in the final round. A nice bath. What's wrong, Kyoka? Too cold for you? Issei asked. Kyoka was shivering but maintained her cool as she looked at Issei with a mocking smile. I can walk around in just normal clothes for the winter. I don't need a jacket to keep me warm. Kyoka said as she could feel her muscles scream at her to get out of the bath, but her pride as an athlete stopped her. Issei was calm on the surface but knew he could stay on for so long. Oh yeah? I was trained to withstand the cold and negative temperatures. Got to thank North America for that. Issei said as they continued their stare down to psyche each other out until the cold got to them. As they both got out at the same time, which meant they were tied. Again. Damn. So much for your training, Kyoka said as she shivered like a penguin, while Issei was also shivering but less than Kyoka. Oh yeah? What happened to the little miss? I can deal with the cold. Issei asked as the two headed into the bathhouse and began warming up in the bathtubs. Unfortunately, since they didn't accommodate a male as pilot, they sat next to each other as they cleaned up from their workout. Issei and Kyoka were silent for a couple of minutes until Issei broke the ice. You're good, Kyoka. I honestly haven't had someone push me like that in working out. My friend back home never really worked out as much as I did, but he always went on a jog with me when he woke up early. Issei said as he recalled his friends back home. Ichika had introduced him to Ran and Dan, and surprisingly, Issei hit it off with Ran, since the girl was a spitfire and a bit of a tomboy, but Issei admired that about her. Ichika and Dan were amazed how Issei could not only help Ran control her rage and such, but helped her release her energy into a sport to use it all. Swimming. Kyoka smiled at this as she recalled not having many friends trained with her, so having someone with her was excellent. You're not so bad yourself. Kyoka said as he got up from the bath and headed to the changing room. Issei stayed a bit longer to give Kyoka time to change before heading out of the tub and went to get changed, as well as Kyoka finished getting dressed. This was nice. We should do this some more. Why not come to my club and check it out? Kyoka offered as Issei thought about taking it. He smiled and accepted it before Kyoka left Issei alone as he changed into his regular clean clothes. Hope Charles is okay, Issei said as he looked at the wall clock and saw it was 6:30 in the morning. Hopefully, he's up. I can't imagine staying in so long, and we did go to bed around 10 last night. Issei said as he left the changing room, headed to his room, and knocked on the door a few times. Issei didn't hear anything as he just thought he was still asleep before unlocking the door and saw that the lights were still off, but unfortunately, Issei didn't seem to hear the bathroom open as he closed the apartment door. Is that you, Issei? Charlotte asked. Issei froze in fear as he turned around to see that Charlotte was in her regular school attire. Oh, thank you God. I was worried I was going to die. Issei said as he let out a sigh of relief before Charlotte asked. Are you okay, Issei? Huh? Oh, I'm fine. I was just shocked to see you were up. I didn't think you were a morning person, so I tried to be quiet. Issei said as Charlotte was touched by his kindness before hugging him as she blushed. Thank you, Issei, Charlotte said as she then decided to tickle him, which made the two fall to the floor just as the door was slammed open by a happy Hauki. Hey Issei. I'm here, Hauki said before pausing to see their questionable position. What the hell is this? A few minutes later. It's just the second day of the new year, Chifayu said as she grumbled in her office, hoping to have a relaxing morning with her coffee, before looking at a flustered Hauki and an embarrassed Charlotte and Issei. Now look, I understand that you live under the same roof, but that does not mean you two can show off so much PDA, Chifayu said as she drank her coffee as Issei tried to save the two of them. Charles was just tickling me to mess with me. Nothing happened. Issei shouted as Hauki tried to get her image out of her mind, while Charlotte was looking flustered while poking her fingers together. I didn't mind the position we were in. I liked it. Charlotte said as Issei was shocked while Maya blushed at the idea Hauki was also blushing at the image in her mind. Chifayu, on the other hand, had a bit of a bloody nose as she wiped it off her face. This'll be your first warning. I'm too tired to deal with this shit so early in the morning, and I don't get paid enough for this. So get ready for the exhibition match and keep the PDA to a moderate level, or you'll both be doing laps around the school. Chifayu said as the teens left the principal's office while Brunhold looked at Maya with a bloody nose as she bowed to Chifayu. Excuse me, Orimura, but I need a cold shower, Maya said as she left the room with Chifayu groaning, as she recalled the image Hauki took of them as evidence. I swear this is just like when people thought Tabane and I were in a relationship in high school, Chifayu said as she recalled how she and the annoying rabbit ended up as the most prominent gossip topic due to certain things they did together. I can only imagine how those two boys will behave now that the girls will get wind of this, Chifayu said as she looked to see no one was around before pulling out a flask. It's events like this that make me drink, Chifayu said as she took a drink from her flask before sighing in relief as she got back to work while the alcohol ceased the fantasies in her mind. What the hell were you even doing in our dorm room? And how did you even get in? Issei asked as Hauki looked away for a moment before replying. Well, Orimura-sensei told me to ensure you got yours fitted since you didn't yesterday. So she thought I should come and pick you up so I can help in sword training. The key is only temporary since Chifayu allowed me access to your room only for today, but if I had known you and Charles were Ebusi, then it's okay. Hauki said as she blushed while recalling the image very well. Okay, I let it slide, but next time, just knock, Issei said as Hauki nodded in reply. The trio headed to the maintenance area, where a couple of students were also working on these units before someone walked over to them. Excuse me, but would you happen to be Issei Haidu? A voice asked as Issei turned around to see a beautiful blue-haired beauty. The girl before him had blue hair and dark red eyes, and her hair was inward and slightly longer than most girls. Her body wasn't voluptuous like Charlotte's or Hauki's, but it was still beautiful. Hers academy uniform consisted of the typical white and red blouse, but it seemed to be modified with two triangular hairpins on both sides of her head, yellow leggings with larger hairpins on the sides of her skirt, and knee-long black boots. She also wears glasses that show she is very intellectual in her work. Ah, yes. That's me. Oh. Sorry. My name is Kanzashi. Kanzashi Shirashiki. Kanzashi said as Issei was in awe as he heard the name before grabbing her head so much to her shock. No way. Kanzashi Shirashiki. The genius from the Shirashiki family. It's such an honor to meet you. Issei said as Kanzashi was shocked by this before replying. What? You must have confused me with my sister Tatanashi. Most people say she's the genius and better sister. Kanzashi said as Issei just shook his head in response. Oh, please. Sure, Tatanashi Shirashiki is the heiress of the Shirashiki family. Still, I don't care about your status or title, because all that matters to me is who the person is, and truthfully, I respect you more than that flamboyant sister of yours. Issei said much to Kanzashi's surprise, since she was always used to having others come to see her just so they could meet her sister, but hearing someone admire her work instead of her sister made Kanzashi's day. Plus, I happen to know of you in the gaming circuit. Isn't that right, Aquarius? Issei asked as Kanzashi was shocked that someone knew her online gamer identity, since she was a fan of anime and online games, so when she rose in the gaming world ranks, she went under the name Aquarius, Queen of the Seas. Wait. You wouldn't happen to be Drake, the Crimson Juggernaut, right? Kanzashi asked as Issei smiled in response. The one and only, Issei said as Kanzashi was in awe of her gamer idol, since the game known as Dryag was legendary for being a powerful juggernaut that excelled in all skills of his class and rose to become one of the top 5 best players in Japan. I never thought I'd meet you again, Drake, after you told me you were going to high school, Kanzashi said as she was so happy to see her idol, before Issei placed a hand on her head and ruffled her hair a bit, much to Charlotte's jealous expression and Haoki's shocked reaction as Kanzashi seemed to like the touch of affection. Well, to be honest, I wasn't exactly honest since I didn't know how to explain that a guy was able to control an Is, get special training to learn how to use the said unit, go to an all-female school, and wonder how I was going to get through this, Issei said as Kanzashi giggled in response before smiling at him as she then led him to the fitting area for new Is users. Well, I'm still happy I got to see you face to face instead of a screen. Kanzashi said as she had teamed up with him many times online and saw his face and could tell he was a good person, but was sad that she never got to meet him face to face early. Given their schedules and Kanzashi not wanting Issei to see her with Tantanashi around since she feared that her perfect sister would take Issei away from her. Issei smiled in response, glad to see that Kanzashi was doing well, before entering the repair bay where the massive Is stood before him. Allow me to introduce your own personal Is unit. 3rd generation unit. The Crimson Dragon. The name was chosen by Tabane herself. Kanzashi said that Issei was in awe of the Is core within the inactive Is. The Is core in this one is special, since it seems to have not allowed anyone other than Tabane and myself to touch it. I think it's because it was waiting for you. As Issei walked towards the Is unit, Kanzashi said before the core shined as it zapped Issei. Ouch. Are you okay? Kanzashi asked as she inspected his hand before the core shined more before speaking. The NA, confirmed. User identified as Issei Hiatus. Registration is complete. Now preparing for fitting. The Is said as Issei's suit seemed to register to the Is as the inactive Is opened up and awaited its pilot. Issei and Kanzashi looked at each other with concern before Issei headed into the suit and let it connect to his body. Alright, now what? Issei asked as the Is suit began to alter its form. Islet has now entered the Is. The fitting process can now begin. The Is said the suit started to shine brightly as the core began to transform, as the suit became a blood-red crimson with green gems on its claws, legs, and wings. The claws on his hands were that of a dragon, as the armor on top of them was large but light as a feather. The wings on the back appeared to be a futuristic dragon design, while a robotic tail appeared on the bottom. The armor protected his body from the neck and a helmet formed on his head. The helmet took on the form as if it was a Crimson King's crown. His fitting and transformation have been completed. It is to be working with you, Issei Hiatus. The core said. Issei was surprised as he looked at his reflection and saw his form. Consider the illegal move Triana and the Cardinal Crimson promotion for references. Now throw that onto an Is. The Is focuses on speed, strength, defense, close combat, and long-range attacks. Its weakness is its energy usage when fighting with weapons, especially since the shield would be an energy hog. The dragon wings from Issei's balance breaker would help with speed, the arms of the Draconic Rook would help with strength, and the arm cannons from Welsh Blaster Bishop. Whoa. This feels amazing. A training is one thing, but this feels different simultaneously. Issei said as he looked at the armor he was wearing before Kanzashi looked at her handheld screen and smiled at the results. Everything seems to be working and ready to be used, Kanzashi said as Issei tested the armor using his arms and legs like before in training Is. Mind if I take the dragon for some flight training? Issei asked as Kanzashi allowed it before Issei thanked her as he let the wings flap and took off into the air. Instead of which a normal Is uses in battle, the Crimson Dragon is one of the only 2 Is units with wings that usually allow the pilot to fly. They were given for a speed boost, but also used a lot of energy. Issei loved the feeling of flight as he got a feel for flying thanks to the Is, but using wings instead of made Issei feel like he was riding an actual dragon. Wow. I almost forgot the feelings you get when flying. It feels invigorating. To be free. Issei said as the Is spoke to him. I'm glad you are enjoying the ride. Care to test out the weapons? The Crimson Dragon asked as Issei nodded in reply. Hell yeah. Let's see what you got. With dot. Issei began to feel a weapon appear in his hands. As he looked to see, it was a beam sword of sorts, and he admired its form. Sweet sword, Issei said as he did a few test swings with it before Haoki walked out in the training Is. Hey Issei. Mind coming down so we can spar? Haoki asked as Issei didn't mind, so the Is flew toward the kendo girl. Haoki stood in a training Is unit, while Charlotte appeared to be in her own Is. Allow me to introduce my personal Is 2nd generation Raphael Revive Custom 2 Charlotte said as Issei whistled in surprise at the many weapons on her Is before Haoki walked over to Issei and had her sword ready. Alright then. Shall we get started, Issei? Haoki asked as Issei nodded and readied his beam sword before the two charged at each other. Aoki had the advantage of having more experience in kendo, but needed help moving into the Is unit. In comparison, Issei had more experience in using a sword in an Is than outside of it, even though he was given training when learning how to use weapons in battle, so they were evenly matched against each other. Issei could use that to slam into Haoki and disarm the kendo girl as he pointed the sword at her. "I win," Issei said as Haoki was helped up by his hand. "Not bad. But trying to last in the arena with the silver demon will not be easy. The longest anyone's lasted against her was 5 minutes, which was Yufayu Orimura herself." Haoki said as Issei already knew this, but hearing it from the sister of Tabane was essential since, while Haoki may not know as much of the Is as the creator, she still had knowledge that allowed her to get through the basics of his operations. "Okay then. Let's keep going," Issei said before a blade flew into the arena. The edge made Haoki lose her sword in her hands again before the trio heard a ticking sound from the arena's entrance. "You need to be more careful, Shinono. You could have lost your arm," the voice said as the trio turned to see Chifuyu Orimura herself walking towards the trio. "Orimura-sensei? What are you doing here?" Haoki asked as Chifuyu picked up her sword and pointed it toward Issei. "Know that Valerie isn't going to be an easy opponent. She's the only Is student here who requests that battles be normal combat and Is battle. She has the skills to fight with and without an Is unit. I've seen her in Germany and trust me when I say she's a dangerous foe. And that is why I'm going to help you train." Chifuyu said as Issei was surprised by this before Issei accepted it. "Alright. I'm honored, Orimura-sensei," Issei said as Chifuyu smirked in response before preparing her sword. "Alright then. Shinono will be helping you fight with an Is sword, I'll assist you with non-Is combat, and Dunois will assist with your long-range weaponry," Chifuyu said as the trio agreed to this before Haoki began to clash with Issei. The two sparred for another hour and learned much from each other. Haoki improved by using a sword in his suit, while Issei gained more swordsmanship skills. Haoki was now trying to land a hit on Issei's suit. Still, he's been pretty handy when dodging the strikes Haoki attempts to land on him, until Haoki took a page from Issei's playbook and used it to slam into Issei as she tried to surprise him. Issei thought this would happen, so he planted his feet as the claws dug into the ground. Haoki slammed into Issei, and the two were locked in place as Haoki continued to pour more power into her attack to break the lock, while Issei focused on using his tail and feet to stay in place before Haoki's began to lose more control, which gave him the opportunity as he was able to break the lock and push Haoki back as she was unable to use the anymore. "Not bad, but that was a risky moment right there," Chifuyu said as she looked at Haoki. "Shinono, you did an excellent job using your skills in kendo to have an edge in the sparring match, but you were not used to being inside of an Is. However, as the battles progressed, you slowly got better, and I admired that. The last trick you did was a risky move, since it was obvious you wanted to try and land a powerful blow to Hiatus. Risky but effective since Issei can only last so long due to his tail and claws keeping him in place. All in all, I give you a B+. Chifuyu said as Haoki was touched by her compliments, but took the criticism seriously as this was perfect for her to improve. "Now, as for you, Hiatus," Chifuyu said as she walked towards him as Issei deactivated his unit. "Your experience in using an Is and using a weapon in the suit was able to help you give you an advantage in strength and to land good hits in Shinono. However, your lack of experience in swordsmanship gave you a slight disadvantage in the sparring match. Focus on learning how to fight outside of an Is first to strengthen your skills in an Is." "Understood, Orimura-sensei," Issei said as he saluted her before the Crimson Dragon spoke to him. "Honestly, you did very well using your energy sword, but be prepared since Chifuyu Orimura won't be an easy opponent outside of an Is. I'll record her movements to help you train without the Is." The Crimson Dragon said that Issei was given a standard blade as Chifuyu readied herself, which made Issei nervous since he didn't have as much experience as Natasha, who was more skilled in guns and his weaponry. Chifuyu stood away from Issei as Issei readied himself and thought as if he was wielding his sword in the Is unit before a timer was sounded. And in that moment Issei Hiatus knee pain. "Ugh, did someone get the number of that truck that just ran me over?" Issei asked as he was given a lap pillow, courtesy of Charlotte while enjoying the ice pack on his forehead. "Well, you did much better than I expected. You have the power to assist you, but given your skills, I'd say that you're a rookie. I suggest you also practice swordsmanship when you go to work out," Chifuyu said as Issei couldn't nod in reply, so he gave her a shaky thumbs up. Chifuyu then left the arena as Charlotte looked down at Issei's head and rubbed his head lightly before asking. "Are you sure you wish to continue your training for the day? We can start tomorrow if you still need to heal," Charlotte suggested as Issei waved off her concern. No. I'm going to continue, but I can use some help," Issei said as Charlotte giggled a bit as she helped him with the partial summoning. Issei summoned his unit once more before the AI spoke to him. You don't have rifles like the French girl, but you do have shoulder and arm cannons and a special weapon that'll be useful. The Crimson Dragon said as Issei nodded in reply as he looked at his arm cannons before he struggled with standing up. Issei struggled to stand up properly as Charlotte approached him and put her arms under his. It's okay, Issei. Let me help you. Charlotte said in her male voice, which made Issei blush a bit. The French woman smiled at this as she smirked at his response. Oh, is something wrong, Issei? Charlotte asked as she pressed close to Issei's back, while Issei's aim shook a bit due to their position and how it probably looked to others. When aiming your gun, you must position yourself to take the recoil and keep a steady aim. Like this. Charlotte said as she got behind Issei and helped him with his aim, while Haoki looked at the two of them as Charlotte also put a hand on Issei's waist. Holy kami. I think I've just opened a forbidden door. Haoki said as she then saw the two boys in different positions as the training continued. And remember to control your breathing, Issei, Charlotte whispered in a husky tone in Issei's ear as he was grateful that the helmet hid his embarrassment. Haoki, on the other hand, was struggling to close the door she just opened. What the hell is Charles doing? He said he's interested in Issei, but this is too much for me. Haoki yelled as she covered her eyes and looked away from the two, but her dirty mind told her to retake a look. She blushed while seeing Charlotte lean into Issei and press her body against his back while grinding her on Issei's rear. Sweet Kami. He's pressing his TT thing against Issei's ass. Does this mean Charles wants to do TT that to him? Haoki asked herself as her face was so red that her brain overheated until she got saved. Issei fired his arm cannons at the targets and out of the 10 targets, he got 8 out of 10. Oh. Not bad, Issei. Care for me to let go now? Charlotte asked as she then said she was then let him go before Issei decided to get revenge by pretending to fall on Charlotte. Whoa. Charlotte yelled as Haoki covered her, shocked as she looked to see Issei pinning Charlotte to the ground with his hand on Charlotte's waist as the disguised girl blushed at their position. The two seemed to be in their world as Charlotte blushed at Issei on top of her before she gave him a quick on the cheek which made Haoki's mind blow up as she passed out with a massive bloody nose while giggling to herself. Haha. I saw the light and it was beautiful. Haoki mumbled to herself as she entered the land of BL. After that incident, many of the girls in maintenance blushed as Kanzashi's glasses were fogged over as she imagined herself with Issei before Charlotte's male persona joined the picture. Excuse me, manager, but I need to leave for a bit, Kanzashi said as she headed to the showers to cool down and hopefully restore her lost blood as she redo her plan to ask Issei on a date. Was it essential, Charles? Issei asked as he was flattered that he got it from a cute girl while he was also embarrassed because others thought it was two boys in the arena. Oh, it was nothing serious, Ice, just a simple on the cheek, Charlotte said, looking at Issei's before smiling at him. Unless you wanted me elsewhere. Issei blushed as he never had a reel from a girl before since his mother, mostly his forehead and his injuries when he was hurt as a kid, but Rainer avoided him and refused anything but on the cheek. Well, at least let me take you on a date first, Issei mumbled. Charlotte couldn't help but blush as she smiled at the idea of being on a date with Issei before the two made their way back to the dormitory. The two looked at Valerie training in the open as the sunset made her look like a warrior preparing for battle. The silver demon stopped as she looked at the two and smiled at them. Oh. Hello, there Dunois. Valerie said as she put away her weapon before greeting Issei. Issei Hiatus. I heard you faced the honored Valkyrie in a battle without his unit. I do hope she didn't bruise you too much. Too much is an understatement. That woman may not be superhuman, but damn, she's got some muscle. Issei said as Valerie hid her shock as she heard this. Oh, you don't know how wrong you are, Valerie muttered as she left the area, wishing Issei luck on his training. The two said farewell as they continued their walk until Issei heard the AI speak to him. Issei. Please don't freak out, but I'm speaking into your mind. How? I thought AI didn't work when the IS was inactive. My mother ensured I could communicate with you, something seemed a bit off about Chiphias's body. Fine off. When the smokescreen covered the area, the two of you could not see each other, so I was shocked to know that she could see you in the smokescreen. Her reflexes, stamina, physical strength, and speed were nothing like that of a normal IS user. When I got a full scan of her body, I found no enhancements or unique technology within her body, but her blood, on the other hand, seemed to be different. It was as if her blood was what made her a superhuman. The Crimson Dragon said as Issei pondered this before shaking his head. It doesn't matter. What's up with Orimura-sensei is none of my business. Issei replied before asking the AI. Hey, sorry to change the subject, but I want to ask if you have a name besides Crimson Dragon. I do not have one. My mother never gave me a name and hopes you would give me one. Then how about Drake? It goes well with the Crimson Dragon, no. I approve of the name. I'm grateful, Issei Hiatus. The newly named Drake said as she was glad to be given a name. Valerie was walking back to her dorm as she was silent the whole walk back before someone spoke to her. "You worried about him learning the truth of Chifayu, right?" The voice asked as Valerie nodded in reply. "I am Albion. We've both seen what Chifayu is capable of because of her bloodline. Those phantom task fighters are a disgrace to humanity and are becoming more monsters than humans. I pitied her life before, but she could have saved her sister and brother, yet she only decided to save one brother. If that isn't favoritism, I don't know what is." Valerie said to her AI partner due to her having an AI like Issei's own unit. "Indeed. I genuinely feel sorry for that poor girl and the pain she endured when Phantom Task turned a kind and gentle girl into a psychotic monster that only desires to kill her older sister and brother for abandoning her. I could never understand Chifayu's reasons for abandoning her sister and favoring her brother to only leave her for dead." Albion said he felt disgusted for the honored Valkyrie because he saw Chifayu as a selfish person who only cared for one person, her little brother, and no one else. And her bacon issues make her appear creepy in the AI's eyes. "I won't deny that Chifayu isn't exactly perfect, but she's come a long way since she left Phantom Task. That still doesn't change the fact that she was part of Phantom Task and abandoned her sister only for her brother. Even you hated that Chifayu had only cared about her brother and not her sister. Rejecting her as if she wasn't a natural person makes her even more pathetic," Albion said as Valerie sighed in response. Doesn't matter, Albion. The past is in the past, so we must move on," Valerie said as Albion scoffed at the idea. "You can deny it all you want, but eventually, the sins of the past catch up to people who least expect it," Albion said as Valerie reached her private dorm and entered the bathroom before taking off her clothes and looking at the scars that littered her body. "Heh. I usually take pride in the scars I get, but I hate some of them since it reminds me of those who suffered either because of the Is or what the power shift has done to them," Valerie said as she recalled a mission back in Germany. The voice of a broken girl, crying tears of sadness, echoed in her mind as Valerie recalled the first Phantom Task member she killed. Please kill me in my existence so I can be reborn and hope to be loved in my next life," the voice said as Valerie looked at the night in shock before gently taking hold of her hand. "I promise I'll make it quick," Valerie said as she leveled a pistol to the girl's head before shooting a single round into the victim. "Thank you," the girl said as she felt her life slip away as she had finally found freedom. Well, this saddened Valerie. "You're welcome," Valerie whispered to herself as she left the bath and headed to her bed as she placed her head on a pillow. "Killing will be an experience one cannot forget. I'm here for you, Valerie, until they pay you to pass on," Albion said as if he were her brother before Valerie tiredly smiled at the bracelet she wore on her wrist until she thanked him. "Thanks, Albion. Good night," Valerie said as she let sleep take its hold on her while Albion glowed a bit as he powered down for the evening. "Do not worry, partner. I'll protect you from those who wish to hurt you," Albion said to himself as he knew full well what his partner had gone through. "Know that I only want you to be happy, so I'll ensure you find your happiness someday. After all the pain you endured, you deserve to be satisfied," Albion said as he then began to plan on keeping Valerie safe from Phantom Task, and if that organization wanted a massacre, they'll get one. Unknown location. "So this is Issei Haidu, who can pilot an Is, correct?" A person cloaked in darkness on a screen asked while looking at the file on Issei Haidu as another operative bowed and nodded in response to the question. "Yes, sir. The boy will enter an exhibition match with the Silver Demon in 6 days," the operative said as the shadowy figure smiled at this information. "Excellent. Oh, and how is the Juggernaut project coming along? Is it finished yet?" the figure asked as the operative pulled up a holographic screen and explained. "We've made excellent progress in finishing up a few issues that we had to resolve to ensure the Juggernaut wouldn't have any trouble fighting, but it's now primed and ready for the test. All we need is your approval, sir," the operative said as the figure looked at the information before smiling. "Now we can have some real fun. Send Juggernaut on the day of the exhibition match. Let's see how well the Silver Demon will do against our Juggernaut. And Haidu, sir. Have one of our operatives stalk the boy and gather information on him and his skills with the Is. Tell them to use seduction if they have to. Getting every little bit of information helps. Couldn't we just take the child's parents?" and the operative suggested before a force picked her up and began to choke her neck as the girl struggled to breathe. "I don't think I heard you right. Did you suggest that we drag innocent people into this matter?" the figure asked in a calm but angry tone as the girl tried to get more air in her lungs before seeing the room darken. "And then no," the operative said as the figure dropped her on the floor and watched the foolish girl cough and heave as she tried to fill her lungs with air before bowing to her superior. "I apologize, sir. It was wrong of me to suggest that. Good. I'm glad you learned your lesson. Now prepare, Juggernaut. I want it to be ready for its debut. The figure said in a cheerful tone as the operative swallowed their spit and nodded as she left the room. Before the screen shut off, the figure turned around and sighed as they rubbed their forehead. I know they are loyal to our cause, but why must they be such pain when it comes to interrogation? The figure said as they walked into another room and looked at a picture of Tabane before they threw a knife at it before the blade pierced the photo's head. Tabane Shinanono. I'll ensure that your great legacy is destroyed and order can be restored. Your great inventions may have been amazing when it was first built, but now they're nothing but weapons of war. They said as they looked at a picture of themselves when they were younger and the person they called brother. Your words are why I took the mantle to ensure this world is saved from the witch and her inventions. They said as they recalled the speech that rang their heart and mind and prepared them for the war. Flashback many years ago. Current Japan is weak. This nation. This world relies too heavily on these tools that brought women a great deal of prestige and power, but it made the men of this nation a pathetic mockery of the past. The men of this generation are spineless and weak. Man fails to rise in this sick society and is willing to bow down without a fight just because a woman has a fancy suit of armor. The power of nations worldwide doesn't belong to a powerful leader or the heroes of the generations. Instead, it belongs to those damned wind-up toys made by the cursed Shinanono, no Majo witch of Shinanono. The man said as he slammed his hands on a table and looked at the world leaders. To make a strong nation, strength is needed, however, the current lack of men willing to strive for greatness due to the arrogance of women chokes the spirit out of the nation. Japan is just the start, and soon, the whole world will be unable to advance further into the new stage of an era. The man said as he looked at the cameras around him. These toys that the witch made have done nothing but cause more harm than good, since all they do is cause more war, hunger, violence, and death than any other war we've fought. How many lives have been lost due to the witch's toys? How many civilizations have been annihilated due to them? Why must man fear these machines when we have been fighting to bring peace to our world, for all humankind, for centuries now? The man said as many others who watched the broadcast nodded in reply as they agreed with the man's words. Even if I die here and now, my words will reach the hearts of men and women everywhere, and soon, they'll show this sick and twisted world that they shall not bow down to it. So I come as a messenger for those who wish to have their voices heard, for those who are sick of this world and wish to restore true order. I ask that you take up your arms. Destroy those witches' toys and bring our world. The world where these machines of war can do no more harm to everyone. The man said as many people shouted and began to throw insults at him, but their words didn't affect him as he smiled at the sky above him, seeing the sunshine as a pillar of light on him. It is done. My words have been heard, and now it's up to them. The man said as he put up no resistance as the security guards dragged him away. And that was the day Phantom Task was beginning to be born. On that day, brother, you inspired me to take up the mantle and to restore this world, so I shall take your words and brand them to my heart and soul. They said as they stepped into the light as their form appeared. They were an average human, standing at 8 feet tall. He had long, white hair bound between orange rods into a ponytail at the back, which faded into an aqua-green color, and then blue the further it went and ended in rectangular locks. They also had large crimson eyes with prominent eyelashes, wearing gold hoop earrings on both ears and horns on the top of his head, which were primarily red, but gradually became more flesh-colored toward the base. Their current outfit was a sleeveless white garment with a diamond-shaped design on both sides, and an indigo, wisp-patterned bottom half. He wore a pair of red hakama pants and sandals, and a large purple and white neo-dasuki behind his back. They picked up a massive club that was quickly lifted from a stand before they walked towards the juggernaut standing before them, which made them smile. And this is just the beginning, brother. We'll make them fear their weapons and use them to destroy the witch's toys, and once we've eliminated every last one of them, we shall restore order and ensure that the infinite Stratos can never be used for war purposes again. They said that as the sun began to rise on a new day, the land of Japan would soon learn of the wrath of the Nobunaga heir. And now, on this new day, the Demon King Nobunaga makes his first move, Nobunaga said as he walked towards the juggernaut and smiled at the news of this becoming public. And I can't wait to see all that you've built burn along with this sick world, Shinanono no Majo, Nobunaga said as he was ready to take this nation by storm and show the witch how futile it is to try and stop them. And not even the fallen Valkyrie or that silver demon can do anything to stop me. Are you feeling okay, Mr. President? If you need a shoulder massage, I would gladly give you one to loosen you up. Cecilia said as she smiled at Issei's stiff shoulders before rubbing them, making Issei groan. See Cecilia, not in the classroom, Issei said as he kept an eye out for any possible intruders, since he was well aware of Hauki being more cautious around them after what happened during the week. But it's just you and me, Issei, so what's the problem? We're just two people working together as part of our classroom duties. Nothing wrong with being a bit touchy, no. Cecilia asked as she wagged her rear to entice him, which was much more significant given that the sunlight made it difficult to miss. Just stop that, you succubus. Issei yelled as he smacked the rear, which made Cecilia smile while smirking at Issei's shocked expression. Oh my. If you want to take me here in the classroom, I don't mind. Cecilia said as she pulled Issei by his tie towards her. She then wrapped her arms around the blushing boy's neck. Well, since we're done, why don't we get back to our room and give each other a wonderful massage, Cecilia said as she pulled Issei towards her for a dot. Until. What the heck was that dream all about? Cecilia asked as she panted. She looked at the time to see that it was Friday morning before she realized she couldn't go back to sleep, so she headed towards her bathroom and began to wash herself as she couldn't believe her dream. I'm not falling for him. We work together, that's all, and since we're in the same class, we put up with each other. Cecilia shouted as she tried to shake the dream away, but couldn't help herself as she was getting used to the new arrangement with her and Issei, given that they were now their class president and vice president. Issei initially refused to be the class president, but after some coaxing from Charles and Hauki, saying he's the better option, he relented and began to take his new role in stride. At the same time, Cecilia was annoyed that they had to work together, but after the first 3 days, they could tolerate each other until the event on Thursday happened. Flashback. I'm telling you that you didn't have to come with me, monkey. Just go back to your boyfriend and go make out in your bedroom. Everyone knows you two are a thing now. Cecilia said as Issei groaned at the British girl before replying to her. Look. I don't like you, and you sure as hell don't like me, so let's just put up with each other, okay? It's been working out for the past 3 days. Also, I don't trust you since you get lost easily in school. Issei said as Cecilia looked offended by this before barking back at him. I'm still learning Japanese, so back off. And it is not my fault that this place is so huge it can be considered a city. It just sounds like an excuse for your lack of studying, Issei said as Cecilia growled at the monkey for pissing her off and mocking her intellect before scoffing at him. Well, at least I'm more important than some monkey only here because of something in your blood to use in his. I trained and worked hard to get the representative title without using my family's name, so I don't want to hear that coming from you, yaoi lover. Cecilia shouted as she tackled Issei into the room, but as the two wrestled, they didn't notice the door closing behind them until it was too late. Anger management room is now online. The door shall only open if it's overridden or the occupants make up. The room said as the two stopped wrestling. They heard this before Issei tried to open the door with his but couldn't summon Drake before the room spoke again. Also, his cannot be activated within the room to prevent others from avoiding talking about your situation or feelings. Well, this is great, and it's all your fault. I fault you, the crazy girl who locked us in here. Well, I wouldn't have known if you hadn't told me I was stupid. I never said you were stupid. I just called you slow. Issei said as he tried to message Shifai or Charlotte but couldn't get any response from them. This is not how I wanted to spend the last day of the week before the 3-day weekend. I was supposed to be meeting Hauki and Charles for more training. Issei grumbled as he only had 2 days to train before Cecilia scoffed at him. You think you are capable of facing the Silver Demon? She's far more capable of fighting than you, a monkey who's only trained for almost a week in a personal is, and most of your training was in a training is. Do you think you last 5 minutes in the ring with her? You might as well drop out now. Cecilia said. Oh, that's rich coming from a bloward like you because you know what you are in the week I've gotten you. Issei said as he walked over to Cecilia and began to let loose. You're a slow, daft, annoying, arrogant bimbo who thinks she's on top of the world and looks down on us, but I've seen your skills, and I'll just say that you're even worse than me, since all you're good for is sniping, but Charles showed you up, and I still kicked your so how's that look for a great representative, who's nothing but a self-entitled bitch who thinks she's on top of us all. No wonder your country threw you to Japan. They probably wanted to get rid of a bitch like you, which is probably why you never had a boyfriend. Issei said as he panted heavily from letting out his anger at the British representative before looking at Cecilia's shocked expression. Is that how you see me? Cecilia asked as Issei nodded before Cecilia's face became sad as she walked over to a corner of the room and slumped on her knees. Issei wasn't sure what to say to her, but as soon as he heard her crying, it tugged at his heart while his mind went numb as he wasn't expecting the arrogant Cecilia to cry in a room near the one person she hated more than anyone in the school. What the heck am I doing? Issei asked himself as he walked towards Cecilia, struggling with what to say to her before Cecilia spoke to him. He didn't ask to be a representative, you know. At first, I didn't even like the idea of being an arrogant bitch as you say, but I had no choice when I lost the only people I cared about. Cecilia said as she cried even more while pulling out a locket from her shirt and looking at the picture before showing it to Issei. These are my parents. My mother was the one who had more power in the royal family, but not because she was an user. The Is rejected her due to her low compatibility, so instead, she joined the distribution network and assisted in the battle against Is. However, many people look down on my father since he was a man, a very insignificant person to others, who had no role inside or outside the family. That's why I desire to marry someone solid and capable of fighting in our world. Furthermore, being the sole heir of my family's fortune after her parents passed away made it more challenging, so I could protect it from those who wanted to steal it. Just like my fiancé tried to do to me. Cecilia said as Issei was silent while looking at her in surprise before handing her the locket back. Damn. What happened to your fiancé? Heh. The bastard tried to poison my tea and kill me on our wedding night so he could take my family's fortune, but I soon found out the kind of man he was and made sure he never came near me again. Also, that day helped me realize that many men will only come after us women in this world for our power and fortunes we have. Ever since I took over the Alcott family, I've dealt with liars, thieves among the staff, and even foolish people who think honeyed words are enough to trick me. That's why I never let anyone get close to me. It's like gambling. Keep your cards close and don't give an inch, you'll always have a winning hand. Cecilia said as she took a tissue offered to her before she blew her nose and thanked Issei for it before Issei spoke to her. Heh. I guess we both have one thing in common. We dealt with heartbreak and didn't give up on our dreams. Issei said as Cecilia raised a brow at this and asked. You dated before? That is hard to believe since I thought you didn't date before Charles. I don't mind since I know men have their preferences regarding lovers. Cecilia said as Issei explained his past relationship with Yuma and how, after becoming an Is user, women in his middle school tried to go out with him because of what he was doing now, but Issei rejected them all. After I graduated from middle school before I came here, I vowed to keep myself at arm's length from any women who would just see me as one of the male Is users, and sure, it did make me feel alone, but thanks to Charles, Haoki, and Kanzashi, I found people I know I can trust to help me when I need them. Even though Charlotte likes to tease me when she's in her alter ego when others are around. Issei said as he recalled Charlotte in her male persona seducing Issei and teasing him with certain words and acts that made Issei resist smacking Charlotte's when she wags it like a dog when she accidentally licked food off his cheeks. Or even says that she wants to help his aim by pressing herself to his back. This made Cecilia laugh, as she could tell it was amusing. The two spent an hour there before the door opened, allowing them both to leave the room until they returned to the classroom. I'm sorry for how I've acted towards you until now. I hope we can get along better than we did the past week. Cecilia asked as Issei was happy to wipe the slate clean and get along with her better. I'm down with that, Issei said as the two made a pact to try and get along better, now that they better understand each other. Then flashback. Nothing happened between us, and sure, we've gotten along better, but it's not like that between us at all, Cecilia said as she calmed down her rose-colored cheeks while trying to understand better why she was imagining that dream. Does this mean I'll like him that way? No. Cecilia said as she smacked her cheek and shook her head as well. No. It's just my imagination. Stupid brain. Cecilia said as she dressed and left her room to go to her favorite breakfast cafe that served delicious tea. Just need some tea to relax and help me enjoy our 3-day weekend, Cecilia said as she walked past the school building and enjoyed the morning air until she saw Issei and Kyoka racing against each other. Bring it on, yaoi lover boy. Oh, that's rich coming from you, BL manga lover. Kyoka and Issei shouted at each other while running past Cecilia, who was ignored by their friendly race, before Cecilia sighed in relief that she could avoid them. I know the rumors said that Issei hangs out with most of the girls in the class, but I still can't believe that boy Charles is trying to seduce him with his. Cecilia shook her head and recalled the rumors that Issei and Charles were a couple. Still, Cecilia couldn't believe that since she knew Issei was fascinated with the girls more than Charles. Yet the French representative seemed interested in Issei and tried to use his charm to get Issei to fall for him. Maybe I can advise Issei on keeping boys away from him. I have experience making them run away from me back to their home. Cecilia said as she watched the duo keep running until they both collapsed on the ground where they were laughing their off. At the same time, the England representative chuckled at the pair before heading towards her favorite cafe to see Valerie there sipping some tea. Cecilia froze as she was a fan of the silver-haired demon, but didn't know how to approach her since she, as of now, didn't have such a good reputation with her, so Cecilia decided to clear the air. Ahem. Good morning, Lady Valerie. How are you this fine morning? Cecilia asked as Valerie looked at the British girl before setting her tea down and replied. I am fine. I'm looking forward to my match with Issei Hiatus today, since I plan on surprising him with my challenge. Valerie said as Cecilia was shocked by this. But I thought you were going to fight him on Saturday. Was the date changed for a reason? Oh, I just wanted to see how far Issei's come since I've heard from Chifayu that the boy is improving his skills in fighting with and without in his unit, so I decided to see how strong he is now. I'm also not the type who enjoys fighting in front of a large audience, so I don't care about that stuff. Valerie said Cecilia was surprised that the legendary fighter was interested in something other than large crowds, fame, or fortune like other fighters. That's surprising, though I can see why, Cecilia said as Valerie watched the girl before smiling at her. I think you are starting to enjoy Issei's company. What? No, I'm not, we're just frenemies, is all. I think you are ready to ask him out. Shut up. Cecilia said with a strawberry face as Valerie chuckled at the embarrassed girl before walking away and patting the British girl's head. I'm just teasing you. I'm happy you are doing better now than when I first met you. You don't seem like that same arrogant girl I saw that day. You and Issei seem to be getting along better now, so keep trying to get along, and maybe something will happen. Valerie said as Cecilia pondered this before Valerie left her at the table. Cecilia was about to order something when she saw that her wallet was already out and her credit card was on the table next to a hefty bill. What? When did Cecilia gasp as she didn't notice the maid that gave Valerie her bill and the silver-haired demon swiped the British girl's money without her noticing. Cecilia gasped as she yelled into the heavens. Valerie Linaria. Valerie was smirking at herself as she seemed to hear the scream from the British girl. It never fails to amuse me getting generous offers to pay for my bills. Valerie said as she walked back to her dorm with a delicious tea collection that she bought thanks to the British girl's generosity, while Albion sighed at his partner's naughty side. You know she will try and make you pay her back, right? Oh, I know, but I'm prepared to calm the angry little dog with tea and sweets. She's so cute when mad that I can't help but tease the poor girl. Valerie said as she mischievously grinned at the poor girl's angry but cute look before Albion sighed again. This is why I'm worried you won't have any friends. What? I got you and Chifayu, along with that student council girl. Valerie said as she recalled a certain blue-haired girl who enjoyed messing around with others as she did. Still, the difference was that Tanashi Shirashiki was more of an imp who loved to prank others, while Valerie only messed with them if she wanted something. I don't think that girl counts as a friend since she enjoys having a pranking partner or someone else to prank her given personality. Albion said as he felt like an older man concerned about his daughter, while Valerie giggled at Albion's reaction. Now let's go get ready to fight our counterpart Albion. This might be more fun than our fight with Chifayu. Later. Issei was clashing with his principal, Chifayu, who wanted to help Issei get some more practice before the match against Valerie. Okay, let's take a breather, Chifayu said as Issei nodded and panted while drinking water before wiping his forehead with a towel. Chifayu smiled at the boy, who had come a long way from how he was on their first training day. Thanks to Charles training Issei in long-range weaponry, the French representative was able to help Issei with his aim and how to use his aerial skills to assist him in shooting moving targets that shoot back at him. Also, Chifayu could tell that the boy Charles was somewhat infatuated with Issei and tried to seduce him while keeping the PDA on the down low, but that didn't stop the other girls of the school from blushing as they thought the two of them were a couple. Issei seemed to be embarrassed by this, which was understandable. At the same time, Charles didn't mind and seemed to follow Issei around like a puppy before becoming a mischievous cat that enjoyed messing with its master. So, how are things going with you and Charles? Are you both getting used to the new school? Chifayu asked as Issei put down his water bottle and replied to her. Well, I can say that both of us have gotten used to the new school, and I've enjoyed myself, Issei said as he began to list the people he enjoyed hanging out with. Aoki is a lot of fun since she's a great sparring partner, like a sister I never had. She's at Sundeer since she gets flustered over trying to confess to Ichika, but I like being able to help her ask him out. She needs it since I can't imagine what it's like being related to someone as popular as Tabane Shinanono and only being seen as a way to get to it. It's kind of like how Ichika would get asked by other girls in the school when they wanted to meet you. Still, I could tell Ichika was sad because people only saw him as Shifayu's brother, not Ichika or Amara. I guess that's why we got along so well. Issei said as Shifayu realized that the person Ichika talked about on the phone was Issei himself. She wasn't able to speak to her brother as much. Still, when she did, Ichika said of a boy named Haidu who was an excellent friend and could help him with his Siskin issues while helping him recognize girls flirting with him and when they were interested in him. I can see why Ichika enjoyed having him around when they were in middle school. Chifayu said to herself that she was happy for her brother moving on since she had a similar situation with her fetish, so after some therapy and a chat with Maya, she could love her brother as a sibling, not as a love interest. Well, that's good to hear. What about the others? I've been getting along with Kyoka very well, so we are rivals since we enjoy challenging each other in physical fitness. However, I can tell Kyoka likes to show off her body in her gym clothes since she enjoyed flirting with me while wearing those gym shorts and sports bra. Issei said as he recalled that Kyoka was a very forward girl who liked to show off her curves with her attire while wearing clothes she knew would throw him off. Heh. Kyoka, at her old school, was a bit of a gym fan, enjoyed wearing gym clothes, and teased the ones she liked with her muscles. Oh, and what about your friend Kanzashi? Zashi-chan. She's adorable when flustered, though she seems to be a bit nervous around me and Charles. Maybe she's not used to many guys around her. Issei pondered as Shifayu stifled her laugh while knowing the valid reason since she knew that the Surashiki's younger sister had a crush on Issei and seemed to have a fantasy of her being with the two boys of the school, so she decided to go for the last one. And what of your boyfriend? Getting warm under the sheets lately? Hey. We are not like that, and sure, Charles does tease me half the time to mess with me, but it's not like we're dating. Charles likes to tease me with that of his. And yet that doesn't stop him when he's flirting with you. Why not give him a chance? Well, he's cute, don't get me wrong, but I haven't dated in 2 years, and the longest I've dated was for a month, so I don't have many skills in that department. Well, you should talk to him about your relationship, you may have a girlfriend and a boyfriend. Or maybe just a girlfriend since he's a she. Issei said in his mind before seeing Valerie walk into the arena smiling while a sword was at her side. Hello Issei Haidu. Are you ready for our duel? Valerie said as she did a few swings of her sword while Issei was in awe of her athleticism before Issei threw off the towel and summoned his sword. Martial weapon summon. Twin dragon swords. Drake said as Issei equipped 2 blades before Chifayu left the arena. So the exhibition match shall begin now. Chifayu asked while Valerie nodded in response. What better time than now? Plus, this will be fun without an audience to distract us. Now, come at me with full force. Anything less is boring. Valerie said as Issei nodded in response, rushed towards the silver-haired demon, and began to clash with her swords. The exhibition match has begun. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the Nefarious Doctor for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.